Normally you've got a feeling, okay, this guy's got the advantage in this fight, that guy's got the advantage. This one, I truly have no idea because you've got this guy who was a legend in Mike Tyson, but he's near 60 years old against Jake Paul. I mean, what the hell's gonna happen? What's gonna happen tomorrow night?
I have no idea. That's one of the main reasons why there's so much interest in the fight. Some people are taking the moral high road. At least they say they are. I'm not watching it, but I believe they're going to be watching too. It's going to be tens of thousands of people at AT&T Stadium. You just don't know what to make of it. If it's the average 58-year-old, you kind of sort of know how this thing is going to go. We're talking about Mike Tyson. If it's a 58-year-old that I'm not worried about, it's him. And then you have, another quantity, in Jake Paul, who, most didn't take him serious in the fight space, but he's forcing your hand. He's forcing your hand to pay attention. He's forcing your hand to, if not be a believer, to at least tune in, to root against him. He's done that. And he's a fighter who's slowly getting better, but then he keeps upping the ante with the level of comp and the name of fighter that he's facing. And now he's in there with Mike Tyson. I don't know what to make of it. I want Mike to win. I grew up watching Mike. I don't want to see nothing bad happen to Mike. I don't know, bro.
I'm glad. I'm glad to hear you say that because it's impossible to even try and predict. You could see it going both ways. I think. I saw the photos of Mike at the weigh-in. Andre, Mike's body looks right. It looks like, if that's any indication, at least, that he's been taking training seriously. What's your read on that? Has Mike really trained hard for this fight, and has he prepared himself to get back in that ring after a couple years away?
Believe he has. I believe Mike has been training for 4 or 5 months for this fight. They had an original date in the summer that got pushed back. I think as soon as Mike got a clean bill of health, he got back in the gym. And we did an interview with him on All the Smoke, our platform on YouTube. Check it out, man. It's a beautiful interview, man. That interview will make you, cry, laugh, and it'll make you think because Mike displayed himself and talked in a way I've never heard him talk before. But when the man walked in the room to do the interview, I had to get myself together because he's like a tank.
Right.
And he just walked in. He's got this presence about him. And he's like, "Hey, brother, how are you?" But I'm looking at the muscles jumping out of his shirt,
Yeah.
and I kind of give him a hug. I'm like, "What's up, Mike?" I'm like, "Man, bro, you really training for this?" He's like, "I train all day." When I got done talking to Mike and I got done seeing his physique through the shirt,
Yeah.
he made me a believer. I forgot about his age that quick.
Wow. In that interview, by the way, was phenomenal, Andre, and people should absolutely check it out. It's awesome, awesome stuff. You talked about Jake Paul and a lot of people who said, hey, either he's making a mockery of the sport at first, but then he is seemingly really committed himself to the sport. He seems to like the sport, respect the sport, and work hard at it. Have you, as a guy who is truly one of the best boxers of all time, have you been impressed with Jake Paul from what you've seen?
I wouldn't say impressed with, his boxing ability, but what I am impressed with is his dedication. I know the guys that he has in his camp, the trainers, the different guys, strength and conditioning guys. He's taking it serious. You got to respect that. It's some fighters who have the pedigree, they have, the world at their fingertips, and they don't dedicate themselves.
Yeah.
Jake didn't come from a boxing background, and for him to put this much attention to detail and just put that kind of effort into it, I respect it. Now, of course, on the way up, his matchmaking is very, very, specific, and he's trying to pick the right guys, and rightfully so because they didn't have the deep amateur background. So I respect it. I'm not a hater of Jake Paul. Don't knock the hustle, man. He brought his fan base over here. They're
Yeah.
tuning in, and if fighters have a problem with it, step your game up.
Do you think that especially the boxers, Andre, are the boxers starting to come around a little, like the boxing community starting to come around a little bit and realizing that, like, hey, he is bringing more eyeballs. Maybe people who wouldn't have been boxing fans in the past, now they're watching, they like the sport. Do you think the sport's starting to realize that he has been like a net positive?
If I had to guess from the fighters that I talked to, I would say no. Because we're hardcore. So
Yeah.
they're looking at all that they had to do to get to where they're at, and many feel like he cut the line.
Yeah.
Again, I don't see it like that. I see it as a guy who built a fan base, got it out the mud. It's different than how a fighter got it out the mud, but he got it out the mud and they followed him over. You can't knock that. You can't be mad at that. And boxing is in the mainstream, right? Boxing is being talked about every time he fights. He's selling out arenas. He's in the discussion. So I don't knock it. I think many fighters do. Um, but man, putting on events like this, man, it's hard. It's getting harder and harder for guys to at least not tip their cap and say, man, I respect the hustle.
So when we're watching the fight on Friday, I think the maybe the conventional wisdom has been like, okay, if it's going to go Mike's way, then it goes Mike's way early, and if it, seventh, eighth round, perhaps that means it's positive for Jake Paul. What should we look at? What do we look at to say, okay, hey, Mike's in control here, or Jake's in control? Or are there any key aspects, keys to winning that you see for each guy?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, Mike is very, very dangerous throughout the whole fight, but more so early in the fight. It's 8 2-minute rounds. So the first 4 rounds is very, very key for Mike Tyson to establish himself. Try to hit Jake Paul with something that gets his attention and let Jake know that, yeah, I'm 58, but I'm still Mike Tyson. Thing I'm gonna be looking for with Mike is how is he getting those punches off? Are they crispy? Is he too slow at his age, or can he still get a good shot through? Because with Mike, as we know, it only takes one good one. I'm also looking at Mike's defense. Can Mike get out the way? Because just like Mike can hit, so can Jake Paul. Jake Paul can't hit like Mike, but he can hit hard enough. And we've seen Jake knock guys out with one hitter quitters. The fight is over. So my biggest concern with Mike Tyson is as the fight goes on, I know for a fact I can listen to the conversation. I hear the things Jake is saying. I'm looking at his history and I see the body language. He wants to knock out Mike Tyson. He doesn't care about the bad press after. He doesn't care about people saying he's 58 years old. He wants that name on his resume.
Will you be able to tell Andre for the most part how this thing is going to go in like the first 30 seconds or so when you see how each guy, but especially how Mike is moving?
Not the first 30, because everybody's still feeling themselves out, feeling each other out and trying to gauge their range. But midway through, right around 3 or 4, I'm gonna see, okay, Jake is trying to line Mike up, or Mike may be getting a little tired, or no, Mike's still fresh. Midway through 3, 4, somewhere around there, that'll give all of us a clear picture of how this fight is going.
Does any of this make you want to get back in there, Andre? I know obviously some people have talked at length about you retired at such a young
Yeah.
guy in your prime. We're about the same age. We're young compared to Mike, I guess. Does this make you say, hey, it's not a bad paycheck either, but I'm kind of into this.
Oh, yeah, the event makes you want to come back. The
Yeah,
payday makes you want to come back. But then you start thinking about all the stuff you got to do to actually get to the event.
right.
And that's when I'm discouraged all over again. And I remind myself that I made a good decision.
I know. I was
It's
thinking
getting
about
to
this
the fight
morning.
that's the problem. It's getting through 2 or 3 months of training camp and sparring 3 days a week and all that. That's the problem.
Right. We were talking to Stephen Espinosa this morning. I said, what do you think they're going to make? He's like, oh, at least 30 to 40 million. I'm like, that's not too bad for like 16 minutes of work. But right, it's not 16 minutes of work, right? That's the fun part, I guess.
But it's a beautiful payday nonetheless. It's not
Yeah.
a bad, shot in the arm for Mike at this stage. And life's not a
Yeah.
bad shot in the arm for either one of them. They both
No,
got
I'd take
money.
that
We like
shot in the arm. Yeah.
them any day of the week.